Well, g'day and welcome back to the shed. This is part 2 of this Philips 353A, which has proved to be a real nuisance of a radio. I'd just about given up hope on it by the end of the last video. The main reason I bought it was that it had an FM section, and the one thing I could not do is get the FM to work. I eliminated just about everything in the FM section, down to the two EF80 valves, and I thought, well, they can't both be no good. But anyway, I haven't got around to getting them tested, but I did see on eBay someone selling a couple of 6BX6s, and these are a direct equivalent, and so I've got them now. So I thought I'd just plug them in and see if they make a difference. Of course, I put the radio back together again in the meantime, thinking I wasn't going to be able to do anything with it for a while. And it still needs some work. The cabinet needs some work, it needs an alignment, the speaker needs some work. But if these work, it'll be worthwhile carrying on with it. So I have to pull the radio apart again, so let's get on with that. Now these two valves are up in here, and they're a bit hard to get to with the chassis in the set, and anyway I'll probably want to check the voltages on them, and in case the new ones do work I'll need to take it out anyway to do some work on it. I was so convinced that I was putting this radio away for a while that I didn't think I'd be pulling it apart again so soon. Take these speaker leads off again. And out it comes. After a bit of a fight. It is a Philips, of course. So there we go. I'll just take these out. I won't even try them one at a time because I swapped them over last time while I was working on it and there was no difference. So if one's gone, they've both gone, I think. In any case, I'll cut my losses and plug them both in, and we'll just see if it goes bang. There we go. Okay, well I'll attach the shop speaker to it again. And there's the other one there. Put an aerial on it. That'll do. Might as well put some knobs on too, making it a little bit easier to deal with. I may be being a bit optimistic here, but if this doesn't work, I don't know where I go from here. There'll be a lot of head scratching and circuit tracing involved. So I am really putting everything on these valves being the problem. So there's really nothing left to do. The moment of truth has arrived. So this really is make or break. Plugging it in, it's turned on. Turn the power on. We'll give it a minute to warm up.
Casbolt and Chol, it's not on them as...
It's to the church hall. Very safe. Attendance congregation beat this United Church pancake day.
Man and totally dominated by the Essendon halfbacks, and again we've talked about the impact that Redmond's had, but also McGrath particularly in that first half. So as good as it.
Well, AM's working as well as it ever did, which is not very well. So the moment of truth, I guess, put it onto FM and see if we hear anything. And oh, I thought I heard something there. Oh, wait a minute. How about we plug in the aerial? It goes in there, I think. What? Listen to that! Well, will you listen to that? It's just worked, just like that. Sounds good too. I can't leave too much music on.
Huge range of electrical accessories. Beacon makes everybody's job easier.
Big Levi, he's copped the face plant seriously. They've had to get about a yard of turf out of his nose. He's been bleeding. They're checking his teeth.
It looks like he's in the UFC with a cut man.
Yeah.
Gee, you can't get away from the football, can you? It's even on FM.
They're all taped up.
You get your nose taped around your head. Jeez, that's the worst.
It's not.
That's about the end of the dial.
Caldwell climbed in the middle of... Through the years.
Βεβαίως. Και να πληρώσουμε Κώστα όπως κάθε άλλη Κυριακή. Άλλωστε με αθλητικά νέα.
Well, all that head stretching I did, and it was just those tubes all along. So where do we go from here? A few obvious things need doing. The AM badly needs an alignment. I hope that's all it needs. I don't know what else. This chassis really is pretty messy. I still haven't got my new capacitors from Carl, so when I get them I'll restuff the original can with two 47 UF caps and put that back in its place. I don't know what I can do to clean up this chassis, but I guess first things first, I'll see what we can do with an AM alignment to try and get that side of things sounding a bit better, because it really does sound crappy at the moment. So I'm setting up to do an Iaf alignment on the AM section, and I've got my highly sophisticated dummy load resistor hooked up here with clips, and that's attached to my old meter over here. And the instructions say, with the set on medium wave and the gang in mid position, yeah, it's about right. Inject a modulated 470 kilocycle signal to the signal grid of V3 via a 47,000 puff capacitor. So the signal grid of V3, well, that'll be the ECC81, the mixer oscillator here, and that is on pin 2, and it should be attached to this resistor R15, and there it is, R15 1.2 meg. So looking for the signal grid of the ECC81, that's in there, and this is the only way that this chassis will sit up in any direction without props and whatever, so I'll do it this way. So here's the base of the ECH81, and pin 2, there's the gap, 1, 2, and just to verify it, here's that 1.2 meg resistor going on to pin 2 here. So if I can get a clip onto that, I can probably clip it onto the leg of that capacitor there. That will give us a good connection. So with that done, I'll turn it back over. Being careful not to tangle up the leads. And I've got my ancient leader signal generator set to 470.49 near as kilocycles. Great old things, these leaders. Everyone seems to have them, and they work really well until you start messing with FM, and then they really don't cut it. So I'll turn it on and see if we can hear that through the speaker for a start. Plugging it in, volume up, and wait for the noise. And I'm still waiting for the noise. There's nothing coming through, unless it's so far off that I'm not hearing it at all. I might just try tuning the signal generator a little bit. Oh, I haven't got any modulation on it. There we go. Oh, that sounds a bit wonky. Nevertheless, it's putting a signal on the multimeter, so I'll disconnect the speaker, and the signals come up a little bit because I had the dummy load connected in parallel with the speaker there. So the next thing I need to do is identify which coils I need to adjust. Unscrew the cores of all IF transformer coils. I'm not at all sure I'm going to do that. I think I'll just stick to the conventional way of aligning them in the following order: S33, S32, S27 and S26. So looking at the component layout diagram here, which is quite handy, and it is these ones, so it's 32, 33, 27 and 26 over there. So 33 is first, which is this one, so I'll just mark it 1, then 32, then we do 27 and 26, so that's 27 there and 26 there. So we do 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll have to see if I can chip some of this gunk off the top there, these dreadful Philips IF transformers, which are universally loathed and hated, and I'm no exception. Okay, so let's see what we can do. I've managed to chip some of the paint off these. Hopefully I'll be able to move them, and hopefully I won't break them. We've got about 100 set on the meter. So I'll start with what it says is number 1. And I'm using this little jeweler's screwdriver, which is about the only thing I've got that will fit into the slot on the top. And I'll see if I can do anything with that. Yeah, it's moving. Wrong way, but it's moving. Yes, it's coming up. It's a little bit stiff, but it's coming down again now. That's about peaked there. Okay, number 2. If I can get the screwdriver into the slot, going down, going up a lot, going up. Oh, there we go. That's about the peak there. Just down to there. There we go. That's pretty close. All right, numbers 3 and 4. Let's hope that this thing will actually move. I've been lucky so far. Okay, that's in the slot. Let's see if I can move him. Yes. That's coming up. No. That's peaked. That's peaked about there. Okay. And number 1. Now this one looks a bit broken and slightly crooked, and I hope it isn't damaged. Let's see what I can do with it. Yes, it's not getting much out of it anyway. That's peaked about where it is there. Just coming up to... oh, it's going down. What's happening? That's about it there, I think. Alright, so I'll go over them again. I'll set another reference point, again at 100, maybe it's going to be easier to read. And just go over them again. It's about that. A little bit more out of that one. Three. I have to be mindful that there's voltages floating around on the top here too, which is not great. I don't like to have high voltage on the top of a chassis. Yeah, that's about it. All right. Well, when it was all set up, it didn't take all that long. I think the next thing to do is to fire it up and see if we've got any improvement in performance. Okay, so I've cleared all the junk away, disconnected everything, plugged it in. Let's just turn it on and see if there's any improvement to the AM reception. And in she comes. Let's see if we can get a station. I don't want to listen to any more of that. That's terrible. What have I done wrong? Okay, well, I connected an earth to it and it seems to have made a great deal of difference.
Implemented are two very different things. You know, making sure that things are adequately greased.
Because they make for life. And that I'm brilliant.
You would think, looking at the circuit diagram, that this capacitor and this resistor went from this side of the aerial to ground. In fact, that's not the case. These are just floating. There's no ground on this end of the aerial. So I've taken it upon myself to put one there. I guess the idea was the bottom of this cap goes to a terminal which has a ground symbol on it, so I presume the idea was that you attach your own ground by driving a stake into the ground or whatever. The chassis is only connected by a 2-pin cord. Now I've now replaced that with a 3-core cord from Coils Capacitors and grounded the chassis, and in turn I've grounded these to the chassis, and that's resulted in a great improvement in performance. And of course FM is beautiful.
Check. A village centre, jetty, boat moorings and active Corso on the way. Kennedy Bay, now set.
Chỉ cho Naka là một luật sư cộng đồng, mà cô cũng là đại diện cho tiếng nói của người Việt nhập cư.
This is a very noisy RF environment, so I guess it's working well enough on AM. I still haven't quite got this loop stick coil sorted out though. I tried to follow the instructions, but nothing I do seems to make it any better. So my package has arrived from Coils Capacitors, and I've got some 47 UFs in there, so I decided to have a go at stuffing the electrolytic can. I've ground the top off it using the Dremel and did a pretty neat job. Took out the ring. This just pulled out fairly easily. But looking at the inside, look at the amount of airspace around it. I presume that that's just dried up. So I'm hoping to be able to remove this without too much difficulty. I'll try the long nose pliers and see if they'll take it out. It's very slippery. Keep on twisting it, it might just let go. Yep, there we go. So that's it. The bottom of the can just seems to have some waxy stuff in it, so I'll clean that out. Well, that cleaned out reasonably well, and the end plate is just these two contacts with a bit of foil attached. They were separated by a piece of cloth. It's still wet, I've been washing it. So that looks okay. I can probably just pare around the edge and fit this down in the can a little bit further and still roll the edge over. At least that's what I'm hoping to do. But I have a bit of a dilemma. I am not going to fit 247 mic capacitors in here. I was thinking to do them like this, side by side, but that's going to be too long, and the diameter of them is just a little bit too big to fit them in this way. So I thought, well, maybe I can put two 24s in and a 48, but the 24s are the same diameter. They still don't fit that way. So what I've decided to do was I'm just going to put one 47 in this, put it back, and I'll fit the other 47 under the chassis. Okay, so I've soldered the capacitor in like that. I drilled a little hole and brought the wire out here. I've soldered it onto that tab, and the negative can come out through the vent hole in the bottom plate. That'll just sit in there. It's not going to touch anything. There's no way this can short to anything, so I'm not concerned about packing it with anything. And this will just sit in there like that. And I've got just about enough to roll that over a little bit, but I might have to hold it in with a bit of perhaps JB Weld or something, just to make sure. Okay, so there we go. I've cleaned the can up a little bit, folded the bottom over. It's not the prettiest job, but that will sit down on the chassis like that and you won't see it at all. And anyway, this is not going to be the prettiest chassis I've ever done. Okay, well, I guess we've put it back in. It sits there, so I'll need to remove these two caps, which I'd just tacked in. So I'll just snip them out of the way, and really I'm going to have to do something about trying to clean this chassis up a little bit. It is really horrid. And underneath you can see the other capacitors that I put in place. I'm going to have to move them. That's going to be right in the way. Okay, looking at the other side of it, and here are the two caps that I soldered in underneath. And I think that by removing these and putting in a single 47 UF capacitor, I can leave enough space for the wires to be brought up through the hole in the chassis here. I can sit it back along this side, and that'll leave most of it free. Well, there's the base of the new, or the restuffed capacitor here. So that's only got 147 UF in it. I think I can probably place the other one in like that. And there we have it in. Worked out pretty well. I didn't have to push too much stuff around. And I don't think it's going to short on anything or anything like that. I put heat shrink on it from here, leading up to the top, and a piece of cloth covered wire which will attach to the output transformer. Okay, well, that's the filter capacitors replaced. That worked out reasonably well. We've got the can sitting there. One thing I did notice though, and I'm not happy about this, but when I was doing the alignment, I set about setting the dial pointer position and setting up the oscillator, and I couldn't go ahead with it because I noticed that the travel on the dial pointer doesn't bring it to the end of the dial. It goes from, now let me see, you can see the little bit of blue tape there. Okay, that's the right hand extremity of the dial. The other end, I'll just mark that. The other end is there. So the dial only has about that much travel, about 4.5 inches. Dial itself obviously requires a larger travel than that. So I was looking at the dial stringing. Another thing I noticed is that, and I've verified that the pointer does attach to the lower cord here, turning the dial counterclockwise moves the pointer to the right. This cord rubs on this bracket here as you turn it. Now I guess a simple solution to that is to run the cord around the spindle the other way. It would then probably clear that bracket. I hope so. But it seems that this line that runs the dial pointer should run around the outside larger diameter of this drum. At the moment it runs off the smaller inside pulley. So I think that's probably what the problem is there. I'm not sure, however, whether the cord that runs up through these cables and runs the actual dial drum here is the same piece of fishing line which runs this. If so, I'm going to have to restring the whole thing. If not, I might be able to get away with just reversing this and putting another string on the outside of this drum to run the pointer. We'll just have to see, but I don't like the look of this at all. I wasn't able to find a dial stringing diagram anywhere online either, so I'm going to have to make it up as I go along, as the previous owner obviously did. Okay, after several hours, it seems like anyway, I finally got this inner part of the drum strung the way it should be, and it's rather counterintuitive, but the cord starts with a knot trap in the center of this pulley. You remove the outer pulley and there's a knot trap in there. I put the outer part back on so it doesn't keep slipping off the edge. So the cable runs around that, down under the spindle, but the spindle doesn't drive it, that just reverses the direction of the cable. Up through these hollow cables, it comes in through the cable end, which you can just see there, around the drum, and around this pulley, which reverses its direction. It goes back in here, back around the drum, and back onto this in the same direction. And it has taken me a lot of trouble. So now I'm going to put some normal dial string on here, wind it around here, and have it continue through here. It's going to have to be wound anti-clockwise, around here, across the pulley for the dial pointer, across the bottom, and back onto here. So I've got a packet of dial string here, so wish me luck. Well, it's dark now, and don't ask me how I did it, but this arrangement seems to work. I found it was necessary to bring this return string here out between the front and the back windings on the spindle, so that as it walks along the spindle, this line will not be trapped by it, and moves along in the same direction. Also it winds anti-clockwise from the outside to the inside, not the other way as I had it in the first place. The only problem I have now is that I can't get a knot in there and maintain enough tension on it. There is some stretch in this string, but I really think we need to use a spring to maintain the tension. Let's see what we've got here. I think I'll give this one a go. Less chance of fouling on anything. Well, there it is all together, complete with spring, and it works in principle, but we have a problem. When the cord gets to the end of the travel, it bunches up. Now this cord is obviously way too thick. I've turned the shed upside down looking for thinner dial cord, but I don't have any, so I've ordered some. It'll probably take a week or so to get here, and I'm afraid we're going to have to wait for that to arrive before we get this going properly. In the meantime, I'll get on with some other things. So while I'm waiting for the dial string to arrive, I thought I'd have a look at this speaker, and for a supposedly good quality set, it does look like a cheaply made speaker. It looks okay at first glance, but it does have a number of issues, one of which is the fact that the cone is partly pulled out from this crimped edge. Now, I was able to roll this cardboard packing piece in, but the cone didn't go with it. It just moved over the top of the cone, and I can't find any way of pushing this edge of the cone into the crimped edge to level it out. The other problem is the cone is sitting too far back in the frame or the basket. It should be forward about here. And the other giveaway to that is the position of the spider at the back. It's pushed in, it should be sitting about there, not back there. In any case, I started looking around for a replacement speaker. I don't have a single 6-inch speaker, permanent magnet type or any type for that matter, in the shed. The best I could come up with was this. This is a 5-inch speaker. I bought it from the local electronics shop, JCar, and it cost $7.95. It's not a bad little speaker for the price. It's should do the job. I measured it at about 4.5 ohms, so it's probably a 5 ohm speaker. The one that came out of the set, the original, is a 6 ohm speaker. I don't suppose it'll make all that much difference. It seems to be, for the price, it seems to be quite good quality. So I'll put that in and just see how that goes. The next problem I had was how to fit it in, and I came up with this. I cut this out of a piece of plywood, so this will clip onto the original baffle board using the original clips, so that the original speaker can be put back if I find a way to fix it, and if I don't, it should be a reasonable replacement. So that will then go on there, and yeah, hopefully that'll work out okay. As for the grill cloth, I was hoping to just pull it straight. It's not going to be quite that simple. It's saturated with glue in some places. I peeled it off, and I think I might be able to pull it straight and glue it back on. I'll give it a go first anyway. If I can't do that, I do have some grill cloth that might look okay on it. I'll try this first. If that fails, I'll put on some new grill cloth. I've rubbed all the flaking cream paint off from around the edges here, and just given it a light rub back with fine steel wool and masked it all off, and I'm about to spray some new cream colour around the edge here. I've got a colour that will pretty much perfectly match what was there originally, so that's good. I decided to start off with some grey primer first, just to make sure we get good adhesion. It's going on a little bit orange peely, not very good. Okay, I'll let that dry off, and probably have to rub it back with some fine wet and dry. Just rubbing it down lightly with fine wet and dry. It seems to be taking out the orange peel. Okay, so here comes the top coat. Well, the paint's touch dry. I guess it's okay to remove the masking tape. May as well make a start. And there it is. I'll just give the cabinet a coat of, or go over with metal polish. I haven't done anything with this yet apart from just wash it. Mind you, it's not too bad. So I've got the speaker mounted back in the cabinet, put the front plate on, I've got the dipole aerial put back in it, and it doesn't look too bad. It's the grill cloth isn't quite as straight as I would have liked it, but it's okay. Put a couple of little felts in to hold the dial from rattling. So there's not much more I can do with it until my dial string arrives, and so I thought I'd put it back in the cabinet for the time being and just see how it sounds. I won't be able to tune across with too many stations, that's the only thing. Okay, so let's see if we can get it in. You've got to sort of feed the dial pointer through a slot and up as you put the chassis in. Classic case of Philips making something that could be easy a whole lot harder. But that's in. So now we need some screws through the base to hold it in place. Okay, well, I'll just put the dial on and it just clips in there. I must paint that dial pointer too, I forgot to do that. When I get the dial string, it'll all have to come out again anyway. So this just snaps into there. And the knobs. And there she is. I put an aerial on it. I should put the back on, I suppose. I don't want it to get broken or something. So, not the prettiest chassis ever, but I did my best to clean it up. There's only so much you can do sometimes. Second thoughts, I'll leave the back of it for the moment because I don't have a plug to go into these little sockets. They're smaller than a banana plug, so I've got to clip it on with an alligator clip at the moment. I'll have to see if I can find something to fit them, either that or I could mount some new terminals next to them on that board.
Box into its second. The acclaimed comic murder mystery merrily and mischievously continues to secret spaces and previous.
Well, it's been about a week and my dial string still hasn't arrived, so I'm going to call this the end of this video. When the dial string arrives, I will restring it. It's working quite well as it is, but you do feel it getting tight towards the end of travel of the pointer, and I can't have that, so I'll fix that up. I've done a few other little things to it. I've fixed up that hole in the back panel. I think that was from heat damage, and filled it with epoxy and coloured it. It doesn't look great, but it's a reasonable repair and it'll hold it in place and stop it from getting worse. The cabinet's polished up really nicely, I'd have to say. The Bakelite was in good condition to start with and it's got a nice soft shine to it. I've put this little wire loop in the aerial socket. It was the least intrusive way I could think of doing it, so that you can still hook the aerial onto it easily. And I've found some matching screws for the back panel and screwed it on securely. But overall, I'm very happy with the radio. It sounds good. I did notice on the heavy bass, and you do get a bit of bass through this on FM, especially on hip hop and whatever. There's something buzzing or rattling in the cabinet, so when I pull it apart to do the dial string, I'll have a look for that as well. But other than that, look, it's a pretty good radio, pretty tidy looking, and overall I'm happy with the result. So thanks for watching. I've got another rather big project I'm going to start on very soon. Looking forward to that, so I hope you can join me in the shed for that.